Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to this daily science fiction extravaganza, commonly known as Tales from Outer Space. Taken from the subreddit HFY. All the relevant links will be down below. And, as always, I hope that you enjoy. And if you do, please consider supporting the channel. On to the science fiction. Story number 1. Night Terrors. Written by PhilattheGame. Isiki woke up screaming from sleep, her mate waking next to her. He waved for the light to come on, and there were 4 arms enveloping her immediately. Isiki couldn't stop the tears of terror that streamed down her face. For several minutes they stayed like that. Kamuta, who knew that nothing he could say would help Isiki right at this moment. Finally, the sobs and the shaking stopped, and Isiki was able to collect herself. "More night terrors?" Kamuta asked, as he wiped the tears away from Isiki. "Yes," she replied quietly. "This is 4 times this week. Do you think that we should go see a doctor? Maybe they can give you something," Kamuta inquired. Isiki shook her head and hugged her with scaled mate, her fur transferring heat from her to him, one of the many benefits of a mixed marriage. "I don't want to start taking pills or medication again, not after finally getting off the old ones," she said, referring to her 5-year-long battle with cancer. "I know, but your kind needs a lot more sleep than what you're getting. I can get away with it for a couple months, but you can't. Maybe we can talk about what happened. It could help. I read that if you talk about the trauma, sometimes it helps," he offered as he got up to get her a drink. Isiki wrinkled her nose in the smell of the drink, then drowned it in one gulp. Making a face, she said, "I don't know. I can barely get through the day without degenerating into a mess. My people weren't built to take on such stresses. I don't think I could recount it." "It's all right. I'm here. We can get through it together," Kamuta reassured her. "All right. Last month, everything was the same as it was always. I went to the gym to run for an hour, then go swimming. I cleaned up and went to work. I work out to the first floor on our building. We handle old money from different species from the past. We were working on cataloging Ganuta currency. They were the 10th oldest species of the galaxy. I remember coming in before everyone else, as usual. I did my rounds, getting the water and the tea, coffee and beverage dispensers. I got the mail and organized it by department. About the time my boss, a Kanturakiabuga, came in riding on his pet, I gave him his mail. "Hello, we don't have a lot for you today. We did get documents for verification for the Ganite money at last," I told him. "Finally," he replied squeakily, his high-pitched voice still hurting my sensitive ears. I remember thinking of getting ear protectors to help one day. Everyone started to come in at about that time. My girlfriend Zizzy was a little late, as always, but her late was most people's on time. We chatted as we put on our protective gear. We had to wear it to keep contamination off the priceless antiques. Zizzy and I, the only ones working with the money because of the protective gear was a small size. Our boss was not willing to pay to get more gear. I didn't mind. The more I get to interact with the antiques, the happier I was. Zizzy was the closest thing to an expert on ancient money, so it worked out. We went into the clean room and started cataloging the money. It had been an hour when we heard the yelling. We ignored it at first, figuring some client was upset at our pace. That was dashed when I heard weapons discharging. Not knowing what was going on, we tried to lock the door. Minutes later, the door lock was blasted apart. Then a huge, ugly-looking Gakai stumbled into the room, strange powder covering his nose and gills, and it had a wild look at its eyes. "You shouldn't have been in there. You'll contaminate the antiques," Zizzy pleaded, ignoring her. The Gakai pulled out the container. "Put the money in the container," it ordered, pointing her weapons at me, too afraid to speak. I complied. Zizzy wisely didn't say anything else. The Kakai didn't seem to be all there mentally, and talking to it wouldn't help. I put as much money as would fit, and then closed the container. "Por it ordered, shaking this weapon at me. "It won't carry any more." I all but sobbed. It reached over and grabbed me by the throat, dragging me along as it exited the room. "You stay back there," it said to Zizzy. Unable to breathe, I struggled to stay upright as the bigger Kakai took me to the main room. I almost passed out as it dumped me on the floor with spots in my vision looking around the room. The rest of my comrades were there, kneeling or laying on the ground. My boss was on the ground with his pet nowhere to be seen. I don't know why I thought it, but I found it odd to see him without his pet on transport. Those thoughts were forgotten as the first Kakai came back dragging Zizzy. It had gotten another container to stuff the ancient money in. I was able to look around better at that time. There were 8 Kakai in the room at that time. All of them had the same strange powder on their noses and gills. They pointed their different weapons at us. I somehow noticed that none of them had the same make-up weapon. Slug throwers, plasma guns, energy blasters, and even ancient-type bolt gun. All of them looked as deadly as anything I had ever seen. The Kakais looked wildly around at us. We feared to move, knowing that it might provoke an attack. For what seemed like hours, we waited for something to change. The Kakais seemed to be in no rush to leave. The smell in the room started to grow rancid. Someone either soiled themselves, or the Kakai's natural scent was stronger than what I'd heard. At some point, the elevator on the other floor opened up and 3 more Kakais walked out. Then an alien I didn't recognize walked out, with some type of big black scaled Ossetilia person. I'd seen many different types of lizards, but this was nothing like anything I'd seen before. From the matte black scales on the ridge that ran back down its back, it emanated stealth and danger. I watched as it reached into a pouch and strapped it around its waist. The Kakais immediately started at the lizard. I pulled out a bag of some kind and tossed it to the Kakai. The Kakai bared its nose into the bag and breathed deeply. Its face came away with more powder on it. They began passing the bag around. The lizard finally spoke. "You'll get twice as much once the job is done. Now hold this room until I send the signal. But first, let me pick up a snack to send me on my way," it said, turning towards my co-workers and me. It walked around us, looking us over. I didn't understand till the lizard stopped in front of Zizzy and me. We were the smallest people next to our boss. Towering over us, it looked at her and then at me. "This should do," it said, and moved lightning quickly. The lizard's short claws shredded Lizzie's protective gear, then undergarments. Somehow there wasn't a single scratch on Zizzy's perfect teal skin. I could only watch in horror as the lizard distended its jaw and enveloped Zizzy's head. It clamped down around Zizzy's neck. She was so shocked that she did nothing for a second. Then she let out a muffled scream and frantically tried to push the bigger person off. I started to get to my feet, but was knocked back down by the lizard's tail. A look at glee entered its face as Zizzy struggled to pew fainter. The muffled screams grew weaker. I watched as light blue blood started trickling out of Zizzy's body from her attempts to free herself. She made one last weak push and then stopped, going limp. The evil lizard moved forward, bending over and started to slide Lizzie down its throat. Its head touched the floor. Then it swung its head upward. The Zizzy-shaped lump slid down its throat. I just lay there where I'd fallen. My best friend was gone, and I couldn't do anything about it. "I love the taste of terror," the lizard mused. It turned to me and reached for my arm. "I'll take you to go. I'm gonna have to remove all that fur, but don't worry, you'll be alive to enjoy the feeling." Just then I heard glass break. A cylindrical object slid on the floor and stopped a meter from us. There was a blinding light and a deafening bang. I attempted to cover my ears from the cacophony of noise. Luckily, or unluckily, my eyes recovered from bright lights faster than many, but not fast enough to see what happened first. When I could see again, 8 of the Kakai were already bleeding out from the floor, and the lizard was nowhere to be seen. 6 humans wearing combat gear were already in the room. 1 human was in hand to flip a combat with a slightly bigger Kakai, and it didn't last long. Since she was too close to use their weapons, the human had let the blaster drop. The blaster was attached to the human by a strap. The human didn't need the weapon, though. They knocked the Kakai slug thrower away and delivered a powerful elbow strike. The human was far stronger than they had expected. The head Kakai nearly made a full rotation, hollow bones cracking from the impact. The human didn't acknowledge the overkill as she grabbed the blaster, but it wasn't necessary. 1 human had her weapon and grabbed by another Kakai, but she was so much stronger than it that she was able to lift the blaster and fire it point blank into the Kakai's chest. Water and other fluids exploded outwards. The last Kakai was tag-teamed by 2 humans, both using their sidearms as to not endanger us. One of them shot the Kakai in the forehead, while the other shot it in the chest. It dropped on top of my boss. The humans quickly dragged the Kakai off of him. "Stay on the ground, all of you. Do you know if there is any more on this level?" the female human said. To cite myself, I called out, "Yes, there's a Matt Blacklist Atelier type person. It was right next to me, and it ate my friend." The human woman froze, then repeated me, Black, are you sure? Did it have a ridge running down its back?" "Yes. How did you know?" I asked, but she ignored me. "All units, be aware. We have a possible lizard-type Grong present. Be at full alert. It just ate, so its heating factor is at full. Do not hesitate. Destroy the MFR. Do not let it escape. I don't want to see it alive. Out," she said as she brought up her own blaster to her shoulder. "Doris, MacArthur, get these people out of here," she ordered. With that, we were rushed out of the building, out of my living nightmare. I could still see Zizzy struggling every time I closed my eyes. I could hear the bones in the Kakai's neck snapping, and the worst part was yet to come. As soon as we were safe, a galactic safety officer appeared. The Brogdon told us that we couldn't talk to anyone about what we had seen. He even told us that if we did, we would waste jail time and our families would face fines. Then some techs came in. Before he could protest, they stripped us of our clothing and forced us into decontamination chambers. I almost had an emotional breakdown. So vivid was my memories of what happened to Zizzy, but I managed to get through. Isaki turned back to Kamuta, and she had gotten tears under control. You know the rest. When you got home, you found me in our living room with nothing but a smock. I was half out of my mind by then. You took me to the hospital. Isaki said, "Yeah, I didn't find out about the attack till the doctors told me some people in your office had been brought in with injuries," Kamuta angrily said, gripping the side of the bed. "Now you know why I haven't talked about it. If my sister hadn't come over with a paranoid boyfriend, I wouldn't have told you now. He checked to make sure no one was spying on him. After him, I'm certain no one bugs our place," Isaki said. "Yes, one good thing about that waste of space. Now I know. We still need to do something about your night terrors. Maybe we should go on a vacation. I hear the humans' new world, New France, is turning into a perfect vacation spot. The food is better than any other place I've heard of. The beaches are some of the best, too. I think it's just what you need to get your mind off of what happened," Kamuta said soothingly. "Yes, maybe it will. I haven't taken time off since we got married. I hope it'll do me good," she said, snuggling into her mate. She felt the comforting feeling of heat transferring from her body to her cold-blooded partner. She still couldn't close her eyes. She knew the visions would still be there. Maybe she could get her mind over the horrors once they were in New France. She could only hope. End of story. And that, my friends, concludes this dose of science fiction fun. I hope that you enjoyed. And if you did, please don't forget to support the author from the link down below. But if you want to support this channel, there are links as well down below for you to help with. But the easiest way would be to share this video. And if you are so inclined, subscribe as well. I will see you all in the next episode, and I hope that you all have a fantastic time until then.
Cheers.